ومما رزقناهم ينفقون والذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك وبالآخرة هم يوقنون صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات For the sake of the protest today, Brother Raza also asked me to recite a poem, and I only have a small poem. So, with a loud salawat, I will recite this poem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I start in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Oh hearts that are so lost in the night. Oh hearts that are so lost in the night. Awaken yourself and see this light. This light that enlightens the souls that surround it and elevates banners of truth all around it. This light that shines through the darkness, piercing it like a double-edged sword. And like the moon, it guides the waves, trying to bring us back to our Lord. For He is a star amongst our many stars. For Shaykh al-Nimr is a star amongst our many shuhada, amongst our many martyrs. For He is a star amongst our many stars, encompassing all around our belief. As He gave His own blood in His own home, and nothing less for freedom. For He never gave them His freedom. Instead, He gave others freedom. For He never gave them His freedom. Instead, He gives us our freedom, and still gives us today through His martyrdom. So never think our martyrs have died. So never think our martyrs have died. For the flame in our hearts always keeps them alive. For the flame in our hearts always keeps them alive. Thank you very much for listening, and please recite Allah salawat.
नाज़रीन, आप इस वक्त देख रहे हैं मैनचेस्टर पिकेडिली गार्डन से, जो कि इस वक्त हम लाइव जो है वो पूरा डेमोस्ट्रेशन दिखा रहे हैं। इस वक्त शदीद तरीन सर्दी के अंदर लोग यहाँ पर जमा हैं और शेख निमर शहीद के जो शहादत है उसको खराज अकीदत पेश कर रहे हैं।
Thank you for coming to this extremely important protest, a protest for justice, a protest for humanity, and a protest for human rights. This protest is devoid of colour, this protest is devoid of creed, this protest is devoid of any type of religious persuasion. City centre of Manchester. We gather here for a particular reason, and that reason, as you've already been told, is for the occasion, to mark the occasion of the illegal execution of Sheikh Nimr, which took place just a couple of weeks back in the terrorist state of Saudi Arabia, a state which is completely and in complicit tandem with the British government, or the British regime I should say, because it's in tandem with the Saudi regime, which is also in tandem with the Zionist regime entity, otherwise known as Israel. It's extremely important that we use our voices. There's two ways of staying warm today. One is to get coffee, and I don't see any coffees around. The other one is to actually do some chanting. And I think it's important we get the message across about what we want and what we're here for, with a peaceful protest, with the people of Britain. We've come together as Sunnis, as Shias, as people who are not Muslims as well, because we have one thing in common, that is the love of humanity and the love of justice. So can we start? Perhaps we'll start with a takbir and then go on to some chants. Takbir! 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 So you know these chants, you know what they are, and we'll start now. Saudi Daesh are the same, only difference is the name. Saudi Daesh are the same. Saudi Daesh are the same. We're going to have to do louder than that. We're going to have to do better than that. Sisters need to hear your voices as well. I told you it'll keep you warm. Your chest will warm up. Your voices will warm up. Your throats will warm up. And before you know it, we'll be all warmed up. So can we start again? Saudi Daesh are the same. 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 What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? 1, 2, 3, 4. Saudi royals no more. 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 5, 6, 7, 8. Saudi is a terrorist state. 5, 6, 7, 8. Saudi is a terrorist state. 5, 6, 7, 8. Saudi is a terrorist state. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Saudi. 5, 6, 7, 8. What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? Brothers, if you're standing at the back, can I hear your voices? Not just your placards.
नाज़रीन आप देख रहे हैं पिकडिली गार्डन के बाहर मैनचेस्टर में यूनाइटेड किंगडम से जबरदस्त जो है वो प्रोटेस्ट किया जा रहा है शेख निमर शहीद की मजलूमाना शहादत के ऊपर। इस वक्त जो है वो तमाम शिया व सुन्नी मिल के जो है वो इस वक्त प्रोटेस्ट कर रहे हैं सऊदी रिजीम के खिलाफ, जो कि सिर्फ आईसिस में और सऊदीया में सिर्फ ब्लैक और व्हाइट का फर्क है। आईसिस ब्लैक है और ये व्हाइट ड्रेस के अंदर, मगर इनमें कोई फर्क नहीं है। यहाँ पर आप सुन सकते हैं इसी किस्म के नारे लगाए जा रहे हैं और इस वक्त जो है वो मोमिनीन की तादाद जुग दर जुग बढ़ती चली आ रही है। और आप देखें इस वक्त शदीद ठंड के अंदर जो है वो मैनचेस्टर और गिरदोनवा से लोग जो है उनके पहुंचने का सिलसिला जो है वो जारी उसारी है।
1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. Our next slogan is a slogan of unity, because we see no difference between Sunni and Shia. We never mind what the BBC or what the other TV stations are trying to tell you, that this is a war between Sunnism and Shiaism. No such thing. We are brothers. We have always been brothers. We will always remain brothers, and we will not give in to the divide and conquer rule of the imperialist British state. So for that matter, I say, Shia Sunni here to stay. Saudi Zionists no way. Shia Sunni here to stay. Saudi Zionists no way. Shia Sunni here to stay. Saudi Zionists no way. Shia Sunni here to stay. Saudi Zionists no way. Shia Sunni here to stay. Saudi Zionists no way. Shia Sunni here to stay. Saudi Zionists no way. Shia Sunni here to stay. Shia Sunni had to stay. What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? Thank you very much. We'll start off with our first speaker for today. I request the speakers to keep their speeches not too long.
नाज़रीन आप देख रहे हैं पिकडिली गार्डन्स के पास जो है वो डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन हो रहा है और पूरी मैनचेस्टर से कोने कोने से जो है वो मोमिनीन यहाँ पर तशरीफ लाए हैं और यहाँ पर शिया व सुन्नी मिल के जो है वो जबरदस्त प्रोटेस्ट कर रहे हैं। और ये एक पाक लहू की तासीर है शेख निमर शहीद की। और आप मतलब इसमें अब जो है वो भी बहुत ज्यादा सर्दी है नाजरीन, मगर हम जज्बा देखते हैं उनका काबिल दीद जज्बा है, लोगों का काबिल दीद जज्बा है। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद। Brother and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
I don't want to repeat what we already heard before about Sheikh Nimr rahmatullahi alayh and about the Saudi regime. Our condemnation today is to the British media, to the BBC, to the ITV, to the Sky News. In 1989, probably some of you not been born, there was some unrest in China, Tiananmen Square. The whole world media was covering the square. The politicians were crying on the TV screen, look at the people of China, they're looking for freedom. So what did this poor sheikh was looking for? Freedom. The people of Poland, the whole Western media, again in 1989-90, every British broadcaster was broadcasting from Warsaw. But when it comes to Saudi Arabia, only a very shy broadcast from the BBC, a very shy one, just to say we have covered it. The reality is, the BBC have sent a broadcaster, if you remember her name was Kate Adie. They sent her and she's been arrested in China to make sure she will broadcast from there. What did the BBC do here? Nothing. When you're talking of a human right, they say, well, we raise concern about the human right in Saudi Arabia. Yet, when they talking of a human right in the Middle East, they talking of Iran abusing human rights. The House of Commons every other day have a speaker about the hanging and execution in Iran. Yet the execution in Saudi Arabia never been anything like it before. 47 of them. Some of them are, maybe they were terrorists or involved in terrorists, but they were very clever government, cheeky government, that they put a freedom lover included with the ISIS. Yet none of the British government in the House of Commons, apart from Jeremy Corbyn, have raised his voice and concern about the human rights in Saudi Arabia. All of you, brother and sister, I want you to write to your MP. This is the only way we can show our concern. You write to your MP, write to him. Even if he's going to ignore your letter, next time he comes to the election, he will make sure he will look after your letter. Write to them. And as for the BBC, I will urge you now from here, for 1 month, don't pay the license. Let them bring you to court. Tell the judge, you are condemning the BBC. Don't pay them, because you pay them to make a propaganda for the Saudi and the Bahraini. Don't pay them, and go to court and let the court knows that we are here not because we want to break the law. We want our voice to be heard. So brother and sister, it's not just enough to say we condemn. We must do something. And if it hurts the BBC by something, it will hurt them with their revenue. So hurt them with their revenue. Next month, don't pay their fees. Don't pay for 1 month and see what will happen. Thank you very much.
नाज़रीन, आप देख रहे हैं पिकेडिली गार्डन के बाहर जो है वो डेमोस्ट्रेशन हो रहा है सऊदी जालिम जाबिर हुकूमत के खिलाफ, जो कि जिन्होंने शेख निमर और शहीद जैसे पाक मुकद्दस लहू को बहा दिया, उनके खिलाफ इस वक्त आप देख रहे हैं लोगों की शदीद नफरत का लोग इजहार कर रहे हैं। और पूरी मैनचेस्टर और उसके गिरदो नवाह से लोग जो है वो शिया व सुन्नी मिलके यहाँ पर जो है वो तशरीफ ला रहे हैं और सऊदी गवर्नमेंट के खिलाफ जो है वो एहतजाज का सिलसिला जारी व सारी है।
At the way the British government has been complicit in the murder and in the hanging of innocent people in Saudi Arabia. And that's why we're here. And we demand something, and it's called justice. What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
We need to get these voices louder, We're here for a reason. You've done the hard work. This is the easy bit, raising your voices. So I want you all of you behind me, all the sisters, let's hear your voices, and all the brothers and everybody else. What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! Saudi Daesh are the same. Saudi Daesh are the same. Only difference is the name. If people behind are wondering what we're saying that Saudi and Daesh, otherwise known as the so-called ISIS, are actually the same. They are funded by Saudi Arabia, they've been created by Saudi Arabia, they are supported by Saudi Arabia, with complicitness by the British and the American governments. So what we're saying is, Saudi Daesh are the same. Only difference is the name. Saudi Daesh are the same. Only difference is the name. Saudi Daesh are the same. Only difference is the name. Saudi Daesh are the same. Only difference is the name. Saudi Daesh are the same. Only difference is the name. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? No. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? No. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? No. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? No. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? No. And I pick up on one point on Sheikh Abu Yusuf about the BBC. From the inception, from the creation of the BBC, it has always tried to divide the Muslim world. Even now, under the Saudi guys, it is trying to divide the Muslim world by telling us that this is a Sunni Shia issue. This is not a Sunni Shia issue. This is an issue of the oppressor against the oppressed. This is an issue of justice and injustice, and the people committing this terror are the people on the side of injustice, and the people who are suffering, who are Muslims and non-Muslims, who are Shia and Sunni, are who they are. That's what we're here for, and that's why we're here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Saudi royals. No more. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. Be aware, be aware. Al Saudi end is near. Be aware, be aware. Al Saud, your end is near. Al Saud, your end is near. Be aware, be aware. Al Saud, your end is near. Be aware, be aware. Al Saud, your end is near. Be aware, be aware. Al Saud, be aware, be aware. Al Saud, your end is near. Again, a message to the further field. Shia Sunni unity, we are one community. 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 One thing that happens when injustice takes place all over the world, be it committed by any colour or in the so-called name of any religion, it causes people to stare. It causes people to become evocative. And that evocation can be then displayed in writing and in spoken word. And it's a great pleasure. I'd like to invite our next speaker, Sister Zahra Muhabbis, to share a poem with her. Can we please welcome her with a 1, 2, 3, 4. No more. 5, 6, 7, 8.
Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. We are here today to condemn the barbaric execution of Sheikh Nimr, and by doing so we condemn all oppression and all terrorism. We are here demanding human rights for every voiceless person. I'm about to read you now a poem I wrote. When will come the time when we can live together in peace and not in pieces? When will come the time when we can live together in peace and not in pieces? Our fists have been shut for so long, we have forgotten how to hold hands. Our vision has become so vague, we let ourselves become divided by land. Our hearts have become so empty, we name human deaths just another casualty, just another refugee, or it happened because it was him versus me. Where is the unity? If we are not your brothers in faith, we are your equal in humanity. Hatred is being bought for the price of a newspaper, and love is being lost because of money, faith and colour. We sit in silence as we wait for the likes of the House of Saud to hand us our rights, as they sit on their thrones and laugh at our lives, when all they know is how to terrorise. And they believe they took Nimr's head, but in doing so tied a rope around their own neck, to soon fall and find themselves dead. But freedom is something you cannot behead. Our rights will not be bargained, our voices will not be silenced, our love will not grow frightened. There will come a time when we can live together in peace and not in pieces. There will come a time when we can live together in peace and not in pieces. Thank you all for listening. Salawat.
वाले मोहम्मद इस वक्त नाज़रीन हम हैं पिकडिली गार्डन के बाहर मैनचेस्टर में यूनाइटेड किंगडम से आपको ये डेमोस्ट्रेशन दिखा रहे हैं कि खाली यहीं पर नहीं बल्कि इन दिनों में पूरी दुनिया में जो है वो आले सऊद को जो है वो इन मुजाहरात का सामना है जो उन्होंने हरकत की है जो शेख निमर को शहीद किया है उसकी वजह से उनको पूरी दुनिया के तमाम छोटे बड़े शहरों में जो है वो लोग उनसे जो है वो नफरत का जो है वो इजहार कर रहे हैं। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला।
Thank you for your comments. Can we just get the whole blood going, because I see some other people just joined us. So can we start these chants again and get our voices heard where they're meant to be heard? 1, 2, 3, 4, Saudi royals no more. 5, 6, 7, 8. What is Saudi? I can't hear you. What is Saudi? What is Saudi? What is Saudi? 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. Saudi is a terrorist state. I want you to get this voice out, because this is the elemental truth of today's message. Anyone who aligns themselves with the Saudi royal family is indeed a terrorist, is indeed a supporter of global terrorism. All the terrorism which has occurred in the Middle East is being financed by one major nation, and that is Saudi. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. Can I just ask the brothers, if you could just move on to this side so the sisters can be part of the protest as well, if you don't mind. Come forward a little bit if you want. Spread out towards the back. Sisters, if you can move over here. If you could just come forward as well, please. Get your placards, hold them with pride. We're here to peacefully protest, because that is in our nature and that is what we are. Sorry brothers, you've come a bit too forward now. Can you just spread out towards the back? Mashallah, there's quite a few of you. Give yourself some space.
आप देख रहे हैं इस वक्त जो है वो यहाँ पर तमाम पूरे मैनचेस्टर के गिरदोनवा से जो है वो शिया व सुन्नी मिल के जो है वो इस प्रोटेस्ट में हिस्सा ले रहे हैं। आप हमारी स्क्रीन के ऊपर देख सकते हैं और यही वो वजह है कि इस वक्त जो है वो एक बेदारी की लहर जो है वो अपने औज के ऊपर है और इस वक्त शिया सुन्नी का मसला नहीं है। जो इन्होंने शाम के अंदर किया उसको शिया व सुन्नी की जंग बताया, हालांकि शिया सुन्नी की जंग नहीं थी। वहां पर आपने देखा कि फिर वो एक पूरी उसमें दुनिया का कोई मुल्क हो ऐसा हो जो उसके अंदर शामिल ना हो, क्योंकि इस वक्त पूरी दुनिया के अंदर ये बात सबकी समझ में आ गई है कि सऊदीया जो है वो एक टेररिस्ट स्टेट है और पूरी दुनिया के छोटे बड़े तमाम ही शहरों में इस वक्त जो है वो शेख निमर की शहादत के खिलाफ मुजाहरात जारी हैं। इस वक्त हम आपको बराह रास्त ट्रांसमिशन दिखा रहे हैं। मैनचेस्टर से पिकडिली गार्डन के अंदर मौजूद हैं और आप देख सकते हैं शदीद सर्दी के अंदर, बहुत ही शदीद सर्दी के अंदर पूरी चारों तरफ से जो है वो गिरदोनवा से, मैनचेस्टर से और मैनचेस्टर गिरदोनवा से लोग यहाँ पर जुगदशुग शामिल हो रहे हैं।
let that voice come, because there's something we're demanding here. What are we demanding? Justice. And when do we want this justice?
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it?
Brother Musa Nakwi.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله أموات بل أحياء عند ربهم يرزقون. Respected scholars, members of the community, brothers and sisters in Islam and those in humanity, may peace and blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be upon you all. I had the pleasure of reciting a single verse in front of you, which basically is saying that think not of those who are slain in the way of their Lord as dead. Indeed, they are living and finding their sustenance with their Lord. The very fact that we're gathered here this day on a cold, wintry Manchester morning and talking about Sheikh Nimr and taking his name is indeed a sign and an example of the reality that is hidden within this verse, that Sheikh Nimr is not dead. He is alive. And indeed, by killing him, the regime of Saudi Arabia has made him eternal. And they've made his message eternal. And he lives in all of us. And in all our actions. And it is now our responsibility to take up his cause, as you have done today. And Sheikh Nimr stood up, as we have been hearing, for justice. He wasn't a terrorist, and the manner in which he was executed along with 47 others in an inconspicuous way, in a way to conceal the fact that this is a man who stood up for women's rights, who stood up for equal opportunities and employment for his people, who was asking for schools for girls, who was asking for a reform of the Saudi employment sector such that the Shia of the area of Qatif were given equal employment opportunities. And the fact that he was executed alongside Al-Qaeda terrorists was an act of desperation by the Saudi regime to conceal the fact that this person was great and that this person was fighting for a real cause, that he was on the right of truth and on the right of haqq, that he was fighting for the rights of democracy, for the rights of freedom of expression, for the freedom of speech of his people in Qatif, in Saudi Arabia. And these people, these impoverished people of Qatif, they're still suffering. They have lost a leader in the form of Sheikh Nimr. But inshallah, with the will of Allah, a new leader will emerge, and Saudi's act of desperation will be overturned. You can see that their economy is in a turmoil. You can see that their royalty is in a turmoil. They're fighting each other. They're biting each other like beasts for the throne of the country. And they have built that throne on the bones, on the blood of the innocent. On the innocent like Sheikh Nimr, who fought for truth, who fought for justice, who fought to bring those people of Qatif their rights back. And when they took Sheikh Nimr to his execution, they say there are stories emerging that he was extremely calm. He wanted to go and offer his prayers. In fact, he rushed to his prayers when they announced to him that they're going to execute him. This is a man who submitted himself to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a man who gave up everything he had for the truth. He could easily have made a deal. He could have easily cut a deal. He had been in trouble with the Saudi government ever since he arrived back in the country. It was year after year, arrest after arrest. He didn't give up, and neither should we. We shouldn't give up. He returned back, and the first crime that Sheikh Nimr was arrested for was the fact that he exercised his right to hold congregational prayer. He exercised his right to lead namaz. And that was the reason for Sheikh Nimr's first arrest. That all he wanted to do was to give the people of Qatif the right to hold Friday prayer. Simple. They've imprisoned him. The second time he was arrested was because he stood up for the fact that the women in Baqi were pushed and abused by the animals that are there controlling the holy shrines. They were pushed and abused. Who beats up a woman? Whose tradition is it to beat up a woman? That's what Sheikh al-Nimr was arrested for the second time. On the third occasion, he was arrested after he gave them a petition for peace, making democratic demands of the Saudi government, making demands for reforms, making demands for the creation of institutions for the poor and suffering Shia of the Qatif area. And not just the Shia of the Qatif area, the Sunni of the Qatif area. Because Sheikh al-Nimr, whatever the BBC or the media tell you, was not sectarian. He stood up for Sunni and Shia. He stood up for the rights of the people of Saudi Arabia, of the people of Qatif, who are being repressed, who are being oppressed till this very day. Now, I will leave you with the chant of Sheikh al-Nimr when he was taken to his place of execution. When Sheikh al-Nimr was taken to his place of execution, what was his chant? What did he do? What did he do? Who did he remember? لبيك يا حسين 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 هيهات 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 من نزلنا هيهات من نزلنا هيهات من نزلنا.
Death with dignity is better than living with no dignity. And that is the message of Sheikh Nimr, and that is the message of all the Muslims who have been the victims of Saudi terrorism. That is the message of all the non-Muslims who have been the victims of Saudi terrorism. And that is the message of all true, peaceful, justice-loving people around the world. Thank you, Brother Moosvi, for that very poignant reminder of what Sheikh Nimr stood for and what his mission was and is all about. But we're here for a reason, and that reason is to gather peacefully, because that's in our nature to gather peacefully, so the wider community, especially Manchester, can know that there are people here who completely oppose what the Saudi terrorist regime, the same Saudi regime which supports the so-called ISIS or ISIL or Daesh, call it whatever you want, these heathens, these animals, these monsters, this monstrosity created, this Al-Qaeda created by Saudi Arabia. None of us here, whatever our religion, whatever our colour, can ever give our agreement or give our hand to the hand of Saudi Arabia like the British government has, unfortunately. And not just the British government. I've been kindly given a sheet of paper. And the BDS movement have been very good at this. In basically boycotting Zionist goods, Israeli goods, from our market shelves and from our institutions. And maybe it's about time we started doing the same. Started boycotting not just Zionist goods, but Saudi influence in Britain. We know many mosques, unfortunately, are funded by Saudi Arabia. But also it's not mosques. I'm going to list a few names here. International law firm Allen & Overy. Professional services company Ultra Capital. Amek Foster Wheeler, a well-known engineering company. Arabian Monitor, an economic research community organization. Atkins, design and engineering consultancy. Blenheim Capital Services. BMJ, some of you are doctors here, you may want to take that up with them. British Expertise International. And we have a message for you, and that is shame, shame, shame on you. Shame, shame. 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 Shame on you. And it's a shame that this list carries on. The London School of English, sponsored by Saudi Arabia. Touchline, sponsored by Saudi Arabia. TPP, sponsored by Saudi Arabia. Travel Visa Company, sponsored by Saudi Arabia. And the list carries on. Trowers and Hamlins, sponsored by Saudi Arabia. TVET education sector. You see how they come in? Through education. And not just TVET education centre, but the University of Aberdeen has a co-sponsorship from Saudi Arabia. If there is problems on the campuses, we know where the problem is. It's not with the Muslims in this country. It's not with the Shias. It's not with the Sunnis of this country. It's with the Saudi embassy, which sits there in Curzon Street in London, financing terrorists after terrorists after terrorists. And we say no more. That's what we say. No more. And what do we want? Say it as you mean it. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. I'd like to invite our next speaker to come forward, please. Sheikh Zuhur Al-Hashmi, if you could come forward, please. And we could welcome with him with a 1, 2, 3, 4.
नाज़रीन आप देख रहे हैं हम इस वक्त पिकडिली गार्डन के बाहर से आपको ये डेमोस्ट्रेशन दिखा रहे हैं, यासीन मुजाहरा दिखा रहे हैं। यहाँ पर मैनचेस्टर और गिरदोनवाह से एक कसीर तादाद है शिया व सुन्नी की मिलके जो कि यजीदी कुव्वत सऊदी हुकूमत से जो है वो नाराजगी का इजहार कर रहे हैं और उनके जुल्म के खिलाफ जो है आवाज बुलंद कर रहे हैं।
It is a very cold day, but I don't think it's as cold as the heart of the people in the Saudi government. They've killed, in cold-blooded, an innocent man whose his fault is only wanted freedom for his people and only said the truth. 35 years ago, today, Iran revolution started. And they portrayed Iran as the big, bad, mean wolf who's going to come and huff and puff and destroy Europe. So the Shia are terrorists. And the media and the world portrayed the Shia as the worst terrorist in the world. Today, the sanctions being lifted from Iran. You know why? Because there was no terrorist activity by this country. The Shia never engaged in terrorist activity throughout their history. And you can check the history. On the other hand, Saudi Arabia 35 years ago huffed and puffed evil in all over the world. Starting with the Iraq-Iran war, going through 9/11, I don't know, did I miss something? 9/11, was it like French people done the 9/11 or somebody else's? Aren't they Saudis? Iraq war, the terrorists in Iraq, then Afghanistan, then Pakistan, then Bahrain, and then Yemen, and now in Syria. And I'm surprised when somebody sits in front of a very famous TV channel a couple of days ago, and he's saying we don't want any interference in our internal affair. But yet they go and they hold a very big meeting to interfere in Iraq and Syria. That's okay to interfere in Iraq and Syria and Yemen affairs, but they don't want anyone to interfere in their affairs. Saudi Arabia funded terrorism all over the world, and it is very clear. And when they say we don't want you to interfere in our affairs, it's a lie. It is a demand that holds no water. They have signed the Article of Human Rights. And I will just read you a couple of things. I don't know if we have the time. Article number 1, for the gentlemen and the ladies at the back who don't know what we're talking about. We're talking about human rights, which is being signed by the United Nations. And Saudi Arabia is sitting in the United Nations and signed this. Number 1, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. That's not the case in Saudi Arabia. You try to travel to Saudi Arabia and see if you will live in dignity or you will have any rights. No. We own you. We own your future. We own your possessions, and we don't care. Article number 1. Article number 2. Everyone is entitled to all rights of freedom set forth in this declaration. No such thing in Saudi Arabia. Wahhabism being spread on one basis, that we are right and everybody is wrong. And this is why we see Saudi government supplying and funding terrorists in all over the world. It's Wahhabism. It is brainwashing of young people. And now is the time, everyone in the world, to stand their true position and say, no, enough is enough. 35 years ago, Shia were portrayed as terrorists. This is not the case, and the world community just proved that. Article number 10. This is very important. Article number 10. Everyone is entitled to full and equal opportunity to free and fair public hearing. In Saudi Arabia, this is true, but instead of fair and public hearing, it is fair and public beheading. This is what's going on. You have a fair public beheading, not fair public hearing. Sheikh Al-Nimr, all what he did, he asked for freedom. All what he did, he said, we are equal. Why you take our rights away from us? You don't have the right to take away our freedom. We are born free. Today, the solution for us is not to engage in any violence, not to engage in any hatred, but the solution is to understand why we are being killed, why we are being chased, why we are being portrayed as a big, bad, mean wolf. Some of the youth in here today, they don't know why they are called a Shia. They are even not committed to Islam properly. But yet, you are portrayed as an enemy of Islam. In fact, there is no such thing, enemy of Islam. You are an enemy of Wahhabism. As I said before, if the Saudi government thinks that when killing Sheikh Al-Nimr, they killed the movement of the Shia in the world, let me tell them this. In Iran, in Bahrain, in Saudi, in Pakistan, and in Iraq, there is 1,000 Nimr. Not to mention the lions in Iraq, and you know what these people can do and they are capable of. One word of their Maraja, look what they have done. But we do not engage in hatred or killing or sectarian violence, no matter what is our opponents do or push us to do. Today we're standing in here, we want to understand about our religion. I urge the youth to go forward and read a book or two about what we are actually stands for and see why we are portrayed in this picture. I would ask the youth and the ladies to practice more of a da'wah role where they can go outside and talk to the people and let them understand why we are being killed. Are we true? Are we on the true path or we are wrong? We know for a fact since thousands of years of prosecution that the people on the right path never engage in violence. Go for the people who do not what we're talking about, read about the Shia, read about their history, look at their people, look at their symbols, and see what jewels being kept away from the world. The jewels of people who some of them, like Ali ibn Abi Talib, their words is being put in the United Nations and is the foundation of the human rights article which I've just read to you. And with this, I will want to hear a very loud salawat and a promise from the youth that they go today and read something about their own religion and convey it to the rest. وصلى اللهم على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.
मोहम्मद नाज़रीन, इस वक्त हम मौजूद हैं पिकडली गार्डन के बाहर, जहां से एक बहुत बड़ा जो है वो डेमोस्ट्रेशन हो रहा है। यहाँ पर हम आपको लाइव दिखा रहे हैं ये, और इस वक्त जो है वो इन दिनों में बल्कि पूरी दुनिया के हर छोटे बड़े शहर में जो है वो सऊदी हुकूमत जो है वो लोगों के गैज़ व गज़ब का निशाना बन रही है। उनको इतना अंदाजा भी नहीं था कि वो शेख निमर को शहीद कर देंगे। उन्होंने सोचा था कि वो शेख निमर को शहीद कर देंगे, मामला खत्म हो जाएगा, मगर इस वक्त जो है वो पूरी दुनिया में बेदारी की लहर अपने औश के ऊपर है। और आप देख रहे हैं कि पूरी दुनिया में जो है वो शिया सुन्नी मिलके जो है वो इस वक्त जो है वो सऊदी हुकूमत के खिलाफ नफरत का इजहार कर रहे हैं।
So this journey or this battle hasn't come to an end. He was arrested when he was a juvenile, and he was arrested on false charges. He was tortured, and he was made to make a confession under torture for his complicity in basically doing nothing. Whilst we remember Sheikh Nimar's martyrdom, whilst we remember Sheikh Nimar's movement, we have a responsibility to Ali and Nimar as well. And Ali and Nimar, his case is being looked at. And the only politician that I know in this country who has raised this case is Jeremy Corbyn. And Jeremy Corbyn has raised this with David Cameron and with the Foreign Minister and with the different MPs that are out there. I think the least we can do, all of us, is write to our local MPs. Everyone has a local MP. Do people know who their local MP is? If they don't know who their local MP is, find out. Write to him. Write to and engage with organizations like Amnesty, the Islamic Human Rights Commission, etc., and get them involved and get a movement going and raise the case of Ali and Nimar. A 17-year-old, some of us, like the youth that are here, they're 16, 17, 18, 19 today. He's a person of your own age who is being incarcerated for no reason. Just for the fact that he wanted his rights. He wanted democracy. He wanted fair job prospects. And that's all. And he's being persecuted. So I just came back because I thought it was important to remember Ali and Nimar whilst remembering Sheikh and Nimar and whilst condemning the abuse of human rights by Saudi Arabia. Because here is a young person who is innocent, who is in prison, who is still facing execution, and not enough is being done to salvage his life from the clutches of these wolves. So, if you take away one thing, go and do something about this young man. Please. So, again, 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8.
Saudi is a terrorist state.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Saudi rules no more.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Saudi is a terrorist state.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Saudi rules no more.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Saudi is a terrorist state.
And what happens when we have silence amongst all communities, regardless of their religion, is what happened to Sheikh Nimar. And what happens when we have silence amongst communities of what happened to Sheikh Nimar will unfortunately happen to Sheikh Zakzaki in Nigeria, also oppressed, a leader of over 20 million Muslims and Christians in Nigeria, Sunni and Shia, who's being oppressed, who's been shot, been incarcerated. Over 1,000 of his followers have been killed for peacefully protesting by the brutal Nigerian junta. And I call it a junta because it's led by an ex-general. There's nothing short of that. So let this message go far and wide down the streets of Manchester, that the people of Manchester have gathered here for one reason only, to stand up for justice, for equality, and for a sense of fair play, as the government likes to use that term, but shows no regard for it whatsoever. So what do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Saudi rules no more.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Saudi is a terrorist state.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Saudi rules no more.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Saudi is a terrorist state.
And all the way from Newport, which is in Wales, for those people who don't know, further on from Cardiff, between Cardiff and Swansea, if I've got my geography right. We've got Brother Salman Abid to come and talk. Salman Abid, if you could share a few views with us, all the way from Newport. Such was the cause of this. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters.
We have travelled from South Wales, 16 of us altogether. We are here to condemn the unlawful killing of Sheikh Nimr. Sheikh Nimr stood up for peace and unity and human rights. I would like to address this is not a Sunni-Shia conflict. The Saudi regime will not get away with this crime lightly. We are thankful to the organizers. Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad Salawat.
Down, 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 terrorist, terrorist, down, 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 labbaik ya Hussein, labbaik ya Zahra, bulantar salawat.
We gathered here for an hour, a couple of hours, to raise our voices. But as Brother Musa reminded you, that's not enough, brothers and sisters. It's not enough. Where our voices come out from is called a mouth. But we've also got hands, we've also got a brain. And we need to engage all three. And the manner in which we engage all three, just to repeat what Brother Musa said, is to campaign, is to write in, because at the end of the day we are peaceful protesters. We always have been. The oppressed have always been peaceful protesters, whatever colour, whatever religion they are. He mentioned a couple of organisations like Amnesty, the Islamic Human Rights Commission. I know their website, I'll give you, www.ihrc.org. Go on there, see what you can do to campaign. The brothers and sisters here who've organised this have done a tremendous job. A really, really tremendous job, and they deserve a lot of appreciation for it. Not for themselves, but for raising the voice of justice against this mindless, this monstrosity of injusticeness which comes from 10 Downing Street via Washington and via Riyadh or Jeddah, whatever the palace of capital is in Saudi Arabia. The Saudi royal family usurped Saudi Arabia thanks to the British in the 1920s. And they have carried on with that modus operandi ever since. But we are here as men, women and children, black, white and brown, Muslim, Christian, people of no faith, for one reason, and that reason is for justice, to stand for justice, and we will, if need be, carry on standing for justice every single weekend around the country, shouting out the name of Sheikh Nimr, shouting out the name of Sheikh Zakzaki, and shouting out the name of countless other Muslims and non-Muslims being held in prisons across the world for no other reason except they demand justice. So what do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. Raise your arms. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. We're down to our final two speakers for today, and the snow is coming down. It's a blissful snow. Just after Brother Aftab, I'll be inviting Maulana Sheikh Musharraf Hussaini. He's come all the way from London for this. Not only that, but I'll introduce him later officially anyway. But before that, a few words from Brother Dr. Aftab, please. Thank you. Can we welcome with what do we want? Justice. When do we want it? No. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? No. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? No.
Assalamu alaikum. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. We are gathering here along with many other parts of the world for one reason and one reason only: to fight oppression, to show our indignation against oppression. If I can take you back, Shiaism itself came from oppression. Shiaism itself was born through oppression. And for 1400 years, Shias have been the most maligned, the most terrorized people in the world. But they're the quietest people in the world. We are one people with no voice up to today. It is so heartening to see young people here today, ladies as well as men, coming together for one thing only, to fight against tyranny. There's two ways we can do this. I've only got 2 minutes, I'm being very quick. There's two ways of doing this in the West and in the world. One is through economics. Second, through politics. Economics is in your own house. When you buy something, look where it's coming from. Look where it was produced, where it was packaged, who's selling it. If you can do that in your own household, the dent you will make in the economy of the world will be tremendous. If every household look at what they're eating, where it's made, where it's come from, where it's been manufactured, you will make a big dent. The second is political. Your MPs are your powerhouse. You elected them. Without your vote, they would not be there. And if 2,000 people can lobby one MP, by law, he has to ask that question, whatever you want in Parliament. So therefore, we've got the power, we've got the people, we need the will. How we got the will? How we got the will? Yes. I can't hear you. Have we got the will? Yes. Well, if we've got the will, let's use it. If every person here writes a letter to their MP today, post it out, by Wednesday, you should be getting a reply back from your MP to say, you received your letter, he's looking into it. That's the beginning. If you can't do that, your standing here is a waste of time. Make it useful. Make it positive. Make it so that tomorrow your children are not in the position of we're in today. Ali Al-Nimr, 17 years of age, a country that is abusing human rights, is the best friend of the West. And why? Because of economic power, because they've got oil. That's the only reason why Saudis are so looked upon. Economics again. We can overturn that. Please help people who are oppressed. Help the Shia community by fighting this war, this battle, economically and politically. Thank you. Wassalam.
नाज़रीन, इस वक्त हम जो है वो पिकेडिली गार्डन के बाहर मौजूद हैं और इस वक्त भी देखें यही बात हो रही है कि जो माशी इस्तेहसाल के जरिए यानी कि जो हम बाइकआउट कर सकते हैं, जो कि प्रोडक्ट सऊदीया की आ रही है, जो भी जो है वो पूरी दुनिया में मुसलमानों के ऊपर जुल्म कर रहे हैं, इस्लाम के नाम को बदनाम कर रहे हैं, मुसलमानों को डिवाइड कर रहे हैं, शिया और सुन्नी को लड़ा रहे हैं, कम अज कम जो हम एक अकेले हम जो काम कर सकते हैं वो ये कि हम उनकी प्रोडक्ट का बाइकआउट कर सकते हैं, हम उनकी जो है वो इकोनॉमी को डाउन कर सकते हैं ताकि वो अपने जुल्म में मजीद आगे ना जा सकें.
The Muslims, Sunni and Shia, because we are together in this. If Shias are being oppressed, Sunnis are being oppressed as well. And if Sunnis are being oppressed, Shias are being oppressed as well. We make no difference. Sheikh Nimr did not stand for Shiaism. Sheikh Zakzaki did not stand for Shiaism. They stood for humanity, because the humanity is the biggest particle here that we're here to discuss. And that's why we've gathered. So, if the British government want us to start implementing the prevent agenda, I have a suggestion. You want to know where all the trouble is coming from? You want to know why there are issues on so-called campuses or so-called issues in the community? Take a walk from 10 Downing Street. Take a walk and go down to Mayfair and Curzon Street. And you have 2 police officers armed. In fact, there are only 3 embassies which have a 24-hour guard in England. The US Embassy in Grosvenor Square, the Israeli Embassy in Kensington, and the Saudi Embassy in Mayfair. So that tells us one thing. If you're so concerned about the prevent agenda, get over there and arrest those buggers in there, because they are the den of Satanism, they are the den of terrorism, and they are the den of everything they're accusing us of. And we are absolutely innocent of. All the Muslim community in this country, whether it's Sunni or Shia, makes no difference. Can I just make that point? So, before I invite Sheikh Musharraf, let's get these voices a bit warmed up again. What do we want? Justice. And when do we want it? Now. Let's say it like we mean it. We don't know if we're going to be here tomorrow. These could be our last words against oppression on our lips. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. When Sheikh Zakzaki was attacked by the Nigerian army, it was a cold night in London at the time, I remember it well, just before Christmas. And one gentleman, I say a gentleman, he was a sheikh, made sure he turned up to every protest. And then we had the unfortunate execution of Sheikh Nimr. And then the same gentleman, the same sheikh, made sure he turned up. And not only did he turn up, but he actually organized the protests. He got the people together to come to the protests. And he also got the Maulanas, which is not an easy task, to come out and stand against the Saudi embassy. And even now, he's extremely active in bringing people together, Sunnis and Shias. Sunnis and Shias, there's no difference. None whatsoever. And that man, the Sheikh Musharraf Hussaini, has come all the way from London. And where you've been so patient, I request you to be patient again and listen to what he has to say, because it is pertinent. So can we please welcome Sheikh Musharraf Hussaini with a, what do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. Sheikh Musharraf Hussaini.
لبيك يا حسين 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 محمد وآل محمد بلند الصلوات
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Hazrat Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam says, Kunu lidhalim khasman wa lil mazlumi awna. Be an opponent and resistor to the suppressor and oppressor, and be the supporter of those who are subjected to tyranny by the tyrants. Today, we are here because a great leader of the suppressed and oppressed people of Saudi Arabia, Sheikh Nimr, was killed. He was executed. He was beheaded. Who was Sheikh Nimr? Just what he wanted to say, and he used to say that we are born in the state of being afraid of the regime. We have been living under tyrants with being scared of them. But what I will do, inshallah, used to say that I will take out the fear out of the mind, out of the hearts and the soul of those who live in Saudi Arabia. This is what he said, and this is what he practically did. Sheikh Nimr was not the first person who was killed in this path of standing against the tyrants and suppressors and oppressors of the world. And he's not the last one. The journey continues. We are here to tell the world that we are against all the tyrants, any tyrant, any suppressor and oppressor of the rights of the people around the globe. Whether he's a Shia, whether he's a Sunni, whether he's a Muslim or Christian or Jew or whatsoever he is, we are against the terrorists in any form, in any color, from any creed, from any religion, because terrorism have no religion. And these terrorists who are being supported, especially in the Muslim countries, wherever you find terrorism, you will find the footprints of the Saudi regime in that. You will today find the center of gravity of all the terrorism in the Muslim countries and elsewhere. The center of gravity is in Saudi regime, the suppressors and oppressors around the globe. And today, we want to tell the suppressors and oppressors and the tyrants and the terrorists in any form, all these terrorists, we are against the terrorism, whether it's by an individual, whether by an organization, or whether by a state. In any form, we are against the terrorists. And I know the countries who preach that we are fighting terrorism, the so-called coalitions which are bombarding these people for years. You see what happened? They've been bombarding the coalitions, the best armies, the best weapons of the world and the bombs of the world for years. And the terrorism is increasing day by day. It's spreading day by day. From Afghanistan, going to Iraq, from Iraq, then to other countries, one after another country. And now we see that this ISIS, ISIL, Daesh, whatever you call them, they have reached the heart of Africa in Nigeria. Sheikh Zakzaki, with his followers, he's attacked. Last year, 3 of his sons were killed brutally in front of his eyes. And this year, 3 more of his sons are killed. You know, why is this suppression and oppression going on? Because of 2 main reasons. On one side, like the 2 faces of the scissor, they kill these leaders who are against suppression and oppression and terrorism. And on the other hand, they tell the media, don't let anybody know. Did anyone know what happened last days in Nigeria? In 48 hours, 1,000 supporters of Sheikh Zakzaki were killed brutally. Some of them beheaded even. It was a grave violation of human rights. This terrorism is spreading to the world. So what needs to be done? The population of the world, white, black, Asian, African, European, Russian, anyone, all the population, we are 98%. We need to join hands against terrorism in any form by anyone. We need to stand united, and we can't eradicate this terrorism without unity of all the people. We are Asians, others are Europeans, we are British, we are, for example, Americans and Canadians. No difference it doesn't make. These geographical divisions, these divisions of being a Christian, Muslim, Jew, no. We want to say no, and we want to stand against terrorism. This is the message of what we are going to do today. Secondly, we need to go and get united, number one. Second message is to the British government. It's a pity that on one hand, the Western government, the Americans, the Canadians, the NATO forces, the European Union, they tell the people that you should stand for democracy. The democracy is an important thing. You should stand for human rights on one hand, and on the other hand, you supply the tyrants, the dictators, like the Saudi regime, with tear gas canisters, with other gases, to shell those people. What is this double policy going on? In my name, I would ask our government, the British government, stop supplying arms to the dictators of the Middle East, the kingdoms, the suppressors and oppressors of the human rights and their population. And the brutality is going on. Last year, weapons and arms worth $8 billion were sold to Saudi regime. Where are those weapons used? Against the innocent people, against the people of Saudi Arabia, the suppressed and oppressed ones. The wealth of oil is being used by their princes. You see, go to the casinos on the Ajmer Road, you will find them coming in Ferraris with a number of Saudi Arabia and Dubai and all these. Where are those suppressed and oppressed people? Today we need to tell and to press on our government, the British government, and not in my name. Stop supplying the Saudi regime with weapons. It's worse than selling drugs, than selling these weapons to kill the suppressed and oppressed people around the globe. Our message to all the governments that we are united. Muslims, Christians, Jews, Sunnis, Shias, Protestants, Catholics, all the followers of any religion. Imam Ali says the people, they are your brother in religion. If not, they are your brothers in humanity. We all belong to the same father and the same mother, Adam and Hawa. We are the sons and offspring of same parents. So what if I am born in a Muslim family and you are born in a Christian family, you are born in a European family and I am born in an Asian family? The message today is, we want to tell the world that we are united. We will not stand and help any tyrant, any suppressor, any oppressor, any terrorist, whether he's a name, he has got the coat of a Muslim, Christian, Jew, Asian, African. This is the message what we need to follow. And we will be the supporters of anyone, I would repeat, anyone who is subjected to tyranny, suppression and oppression, whether he's a Muslim, he's a Christian, he's a Jew, he's a Hindu, he's a Sikh, he's an Asian, European or anyone. This is the line that we need to draw. And all the people, we invite all the people of the world from anywhere in the name of humanity, get united against terrorists and the supporters of the terrorists. And we need to tell these governments, stop supporting terrorists. Stop supporting Al Saud. Stop supporting terrorists.
Stop supporting terrorists.
Stop supporting terrorists.
Stop supporting terrorists.
And one more slogan that we need to tell everyone. We need justice for peace and justice for all. Justice for peace.
Justice for all.
Justice for peace.
Justice for all.
Justice for peace.
Justice for all.
This is our message. The world is splitting into two parts. The suppressors and oppressors of the world are going to one side, and those subjected to the suppression and oppression, they are going on to the other side. This split is telling us something grave is going to happen in the world. Let us keep on fighting against the tyrants, suppressors and oppressors, whether an individual, whether an organization or a country. We are all the same. Take off the skin. We are all the same. Message is the same. Continue the battle against the suppressors and oppressors of the world, whether they are in the form of the Saudi regime or the Nigerian regime or a tyrant from anywhere. We want to tell the world, especially here those who live in Manchester, our message is clear. Join hands. The color doesn't make a difference. Take off the skin. We are all the same. And then, thank you very much. And I salute the great organizers. There's no organization. There's just the people who stood up here and just to face the tyrants. See what's happening in Nigeria. Sheikh Zakzaki, he had 4 bullets in his body. He was prevented from medical aid. His followers 800 plus people are still unaccounted for. Nobody knows about their plight. His wife have got 2 bullets in her body. 6 of his sons, he had 7 sons, 6 of them killed in 1 year. Do you know that? Where is BBC? Where is the Sky TV? Where is the CNN? Where is the world media? This is what they are doing with the money of the taxpayers. We want to tell these media people that you won't be able to support the supporters of terrorists. See the terrorists? ISIL, the most moneyed people in the world. They've got billions of dollars in their accounts. You know, you pass sanctions against a country and the country is unable to sell its oil. They can't sell oil. But this terrorist organization is able to sell their oil. Where? Whosoever is supporting them, whether it's Turkey, Emirates, Saudi Arabia, we want to tell everyone that no more. If we are awake, we are in the streets, we are in the field, nobody will be able to do that. May Allah help us and bless us with His special blessings in continuing the struggle against the tyrants and suppressors and oppressors of the world, especially the center of gravity of all the terrorism around the globe, that is the Saudi regime. Thank you very much. Allah bless you all.
Thank you, Sheikh Musharraf Hussaini. Thank you. Yes, you can clap. A round of applause for Sheikh Musharraf Hussaini there. What do we want?
नाज़रीन, इस वक्त हम जो है वो पिकेडिली गार्डन के बाहर खड़े हुए हैं और यहाँ पर एक बहुत अजीम शान मुजाहरा हो रहा है सऊदी गवर्नमेंट के खिलाफ। इनको अंदाजा नहीं था कि ये शेख ये समझ रहे थे कि शेख निमर को कत्ल कर देंगे और पूरी दुनिया में इनके खिलाफ आवाज नहीं उठेगी, मगर इस वक्त पूरी दुनिया में कम बेश तमाम हर छोटे बड़े शहरों के अंदर जो है वो सऊदी गवर्नमेंट के खिलाफ मुजाहरात का सिलसिला जारी है। और आप देख रहे हैं मैनचेस्टर में एक बहुत बड़ी तादाद मोमिनीन की, जिसमें जो है वो शिया सुन्नी मिलकर जो है वो सऊदी गवर्नमेंट के खिलाफ आवाज उठा रहे हैं।
Organizing capabilities that our brothers have put together. They don't come under a banner, they're just people, humanitarians who've taken up the plight of Sheikh Nimr and other oppressed people. And can I just say, because I think this is going live into the camera directly, I hope you have a good excuse for not coming here today. I hope you have a damn good excuse for not coming here today. Can you just show the people who are here? There's women, there's children, there's other people. Can you just pan those cameras around, please, so people can see it? I hope you have a good excuse. If these people can make it, if Sheikh Musharraf can come all the way from London, then there's no reason why you couldn't leave the warmth of your rooms and come out. Never mind Ya Hussein, means nothing if you can't come to protests like this. This is what it's about. Put it where it counts. Can I just say finally as well a big thank you to all of you for attending. As all the speakers have said, don't stop here. You must carry on. You must protest. You must go to all the other processions, whether it's for Sheikh Nimr, Sheikh Zaki, whether it's the annual Al-Quds demonstration, whichever it is. Doesn't matter if it's for a Muslim or a non-Muslim. As long as it's for those who are oppressed, we should be there, or we should do our best to be there. At least on Facebook, let's share what's going on. If you genuinely can't come, fair enough, work reasons, home reasons, whatever. But at least let's use Facebook and social media to spread these messages. These brilliant talks we've had today, get them recorded, they'll be available. Push them around, let people know. Let the people of Saudi Arabia, the innocent Shias and Sunnis and non-Muslims in Saudi Arabia know there are people in Manchester who are calling out against those people oppressing them. Let the people in Nigeria know that there are people in Manchester calling out against those people oppressing them. That is our duty, that's the minimum we can do. And as you all know, today is also World Genocide Memorial Day. And if we're not careful, humanity will, as a collective, face genocide, as Sheikh Musharraf said. The forces of evil, the forces of oppression are gathering, and are gathering strongly together. It is our duty to break down our barriers. Forget all this Sunni Shia rubbish. We are all one. We're humanitarians. That's what matters. That's the important thing. Forget this Christian Muslim thing. We are all one. And we must stand up against those who oppress us. That is the important thing. So can I thank you all on behalf of the organisers, and can we have a round of applause for all the organisers as well, please? You seem in the best, doing a fantastic job. Thank you all so much. Thank you to you. Thank you to Sheikh Musharraf.
नाज़रीन आप देख रहे हैं इस वक्त जो है वो बिल्कुल प्रोटेस्ट अपने इख्तिताम की तरफ जा रहा है। यहाँ पर मैनचेस्टर पिकडिली गार्डन के बाहर एक बहुत बड़ी तादाद है शिया व सुन्नी मिला के और जुग दरजुग से लोग आए हुए हैं जो कि सऊदी हुकूमत के खिलाफ, जालिम हुकूमत के खिलाफ अपनी नफरत का इजहार कर रहे हैं। अस्सलाम वालेकुम वरहमतुल्लाहि वबरकातुहू। नाज़रीन आप देख रहे हैं अभी इस वक्त हम कुछ लोगों को लेंगे, मोमिनीन को लेंगे, जिनसे हम जो है वो बात करेंगे कि वो किस तरह इसको समझते हैं, जिन्होंने यहाँ पर सारी अरेंजमेंट्स की हैं और जो है वो यहाँ अरेंज किया है। हालांकि कोई ऑर्गेनाइजेशन नहीं है, ये यूथ है और बहुत ही जिसको कहें कि बहुत ही ज़बरदस्त काम किया उन्होंने कि उन्होंने खुद स्टैंड अप हुए हैं और जो है वो यहाँ पर एक बहुत बड़े अजीम इज्तिमा करने में कामयाब हुए हैं। एक बेहतरीन जो है वो प्रोटेस्ट हुआ है इस वक्त और यहाँ पर जो है वो एक जुल्म के खिलाफ आवाज़ उठाई गई है।